Da kan vi ønske velkommen tilbake til Kulturhuset i Tromsø for en ny runde med filmprat fra årets festival. Mitt navn er Karsten Meinich, jeg er redaktør for filmmagasinet Montages, og jeg sitter her i dag med den tyske regissøren Valeska Grisebach. And I will switch to English. Welcome to Tromsø, Valeska.
Thank you so much. It's very beautiful here.
You are here with your film Western, screening at the festival. And almost a decade ago, you were here, or you weren't here, but your film was here, Sehnsucht.
Yeah, I was very sad that I couldn't come here, so finally I'm here and very happy about this.
We are happy to have you, and I think a lot of people will have fond memories of seeing your previous film, Sehnsucht. And then this year, Western is a quite different sort of story, but it has your trademarks. And I thought we should start off with your new film, Western. It's about German workers who goes to Bulgaria. Mm-hmm. That's basically the sentence I want to say, because that kind of takes us into the film. And then it becomes something really interesting on many thematic levels. Could you tell us a little bit about how this idea came about to make this specific film?
I think it was really because always when I start with a project, I don't have a story, so it's more like I have some kind of interest or question or something I'm thinking about, and so there were different ideas or paths who led me to the film. One was my fascination for the Western genre. So I realized at some point, okay, the genre I feel most fascinated is the Western, a very, very male genre. Right. And I think I share this maybe with the whole generation, because when I was a little girl in West Berlin, I was growing up. So I looked a lot of Western in front of the TV. And I think I was really fascinated by these male heroes and this kind of masculinity which is told in the Western, so these solitary, melancholic heroes who are looking for some kind of independency and freedom, and at the same time maybe they're looking for to come home at some place. And okay, it's a genre of the white man, so it's and it tells a lot about the construction of society. So what is these heroes always have to decide about some kind of responsibility about society when they're on the border between wilderness and society, if they want to be out or in, and what is the law of this society? Is it the law of empathy or the law of the fittest and the strongest? And this was interesting for me, because for years I thought I would like to do something about this fear of strangers. So you can find it everywhere. I live in Germany, these indistinct, diffuse xenophobia. And so there a few things came together. I thought, okay, I maybe this Western genre is interesting for me from different perspectives. And then I start to do researching and writing and traveling. And I was very happy when I found for myself this setting of the German man going to another country where they are confronted with their desires, but also with their mistrust and prejudice. This is the English word I can't pronounce in a way.
I think you did well.
Yeah, okay.
The prejudice and the whole tensions that they quite quickly encounter. It feels also, I mean, one thing is that your idea was to use the Western genre as a starting point. But even though your cinematic language and your tone might not be that similar to, you know, one of the most famous Westerns, the themes are overlapping a lot. And you said you don't really start with a story, but here you start with a genre. But having seen the film, the landscape and the not only the people, but the people in the landscape, that's also like a Western genre thing. How much were you inspired by the actual landscapes of Bulgaria as you were starting to shoot the film?
So I mean, for about the images of the film, it was very clear from the beginning that we didn't want to be too aesthetic, too close to the Western genre. It was more like the themes, like you said, and the landscape was very important for this, because I was looking for a place which looks like a wilderness, but it's a fake wilderness. Only for the Germans, they have suddenly this idea of there's some kind of adventure waiting for us, and maybe there in the night somebody is looking at us, and maybe we can act here different than at home. And I heard a lot about the beautiful landscape in Bulgaria, and when I started traveling through Bulgaria, I was totally overwhelmed, because it doesn't end. You are traveling and traveling, and you see endless beautiful places. But I was always looking in the border areas, because I thought the border is very interesting for the film, so because it tells also something about separation and about the fantasy or desire, what is after, what is behind the border. And on my first travel, somebody told me on the border to Greece, there's coming the warm breeze from Greece, and I thought, okay, let's go to the warm breeze from Greece. And but it's also, I mean, it's a place where a lot of terrible things happened while the communism, and before it was this area or region was you only could go there with a kind of document of the state. And so it's still a little bit a forgotten place. So now maybe people are a little bit better, have a little bit more money there because they work in Greece. But I was immediately fascinated by this landscape. And then we found this village with this square. And I was always looking for some kind of square which also reminds you maybe on My Darling Clementine, where Henry Fonda could sit. And then when I saw this terrace, I thought, okay, this is a place where Henry Fonda could sit.
Yeah, well, I was gonna have to ask, like, is there any of the old Western classics that you have been a little bit inspired by? And yeah, My Darling Clementine is such an amazing film.
Yeah, for sure. Also, a lot of films, Winchester 73 by Anthony Mann, or The Gunfighter by Henry King. So a lot of films were important for this project. And
I think also, to me, it's interesting to see what's happening actually with the way the Western genre is being used by filmmakers around, like in your film, but also, for example, Kelly Reichardt's film, Mixed Cutoff, was an interesting way to see, like, the Western is obviously there, but there's something about the camera and the way to not go the Sergio Leone way, but rather go more intimate like you do in your film. Because faces also, we talk about landscapes, but the faces of your film, but also of the classic Westerns, is a part of the genre. And here you have found actors that seem to kind of have their own landscapes in their, you know, every part of their face. Did you spend a lot of time to find the exact right people? Because there's not so much dialogue, so it must be a lot about how they look as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's also something of the genre that it tells a lot about these male faces who are not allowed to show many emotions, but there's a lot of emotion behind and a lot of experience. And for the main role, I was looking for some man who creates these double moments that maybe on first sight he looks like a leader in the crowd, so you think he's he's a beautiful, elegant man, but it was very important that he also has these small men inside with all these fear and opportunistic feelings, and he wants to hide in the crowd. And but when I saw Meinhard Neumann, the main actor, it was really for me like a shock, because I was looking in Berlin and in the countryside, and I was one day on a horse market near Berlin, and he was selling old stuff, and he was sitting there because in private he really wears a cowboy hat. Okay. And it was like, boom, who's this? And and then we started to talk and to meet, and I was really, it's a big present to the film that we met Meinhard. Right.
So watching the film, as I think we always do, we are sort of looking for some sort of story or plot, or we're sort of trained or ingrained to do that. And your film has this incredible balance between being very observant to moods and just silent passages. But then suddenly it gets kind of dramatic as well, as they start to sort of look at the other, you know, the natives, not Native Americans, but native Bulgarians here. You're writing this script probably, you know, to get that sort of non-plot storytelling, but at the same time you have to have these movements. Could you say a little bit about, like, how tight was the script before you went there? How much did you sort of use during the shoot for finding inspiration in the landscape? Did the film change during the shoot from what you had written?
The script was quite precise, but the script is for me always to have a stable construction. So we have a construction we can move in, but I write a script. It doesn't look like a normal script, but it's with dialogue and scenes. Sometimes the scene is very short written or longer, and sometimes it's just to create some atmosphere for the team. What are we looking for? It was this time because I'm always interested when I write a story. First of all, of this kind of that you have a narrative or a fiction idea, and then you confrontate it with a kind of reality, like a sparringspartner for your fantasy, and but to find this balance between plot plot and atmosphere. That you are not only connected to the plot, that you also have these feelings that you, not transcendence, but you spend some time with the people or with some kind of life you can't control. So this kind of naturalism it's a lot of work behind. First of all, of the actors, and it took me really quite a long time to write the story, to really understand it for myself. How is it working? Because sometimes I write only with subtexts, and then I try to translate the subtext into scenes. And then sometimes, and it's always changing in interaction with the actors or the location. And for me, it makes me more, when everything is totally perfect, prepared, I start to get very nervous, and I really need some kind of little chaos to catch the ball in this moment.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And does this also continue into the shaping of the film later on? I mean, you work with the same cinematographer, I think, that you did on Sehnsucht, and he shot Alle Anderen by Maranada as well. And then I saw that your editor works with Christian Petzold and some of these incredible German filmmakers that is part of your generation that have been making films for the last 10, 15 years. And I think that's so much interesting stuff coming out of your films. But especially on this film, I also think that shaping that rhythm in editing, for example, must be such an important part of finding that note. Yeah. How much time do you spend with your editor after the shoot?
So I did the first raw editing, so this was maybe for 3 or 4 months, and then she came, and then we started to work together. But this was our wish together to work like this, because we did it the same way with Sehnsucht, with Longing, sorry. And but I have really incredible trust to Bettina Böhler. For me, she's really, I mean, editing for me is totally magic, because sometimes when you think, oh, the material, we did it well, and it's so full of, it's always, I don't know, you expect something to do, and then it comes different, and but for me, editing is really magic. What you can do with material, but she is really, for me, a wonderful woman, and she has such a feeling for content and rhythm, and such a tenderness with the material. And this time it was for me also very interesting, because normally I was from the beginning with her in the editing room, so you look together to every cut. But this time we tried something different. That on the first round we talked more like about, I don't know, abstract philosophical things, or the subtext of the scene, and then she did the first draft for the scene, and this was very beautiful for me to see this kind of what is her voice in the film. But about the group, so Christian Petzold and Bettina Böhler and Maren Ade, it's wonderful because we are friends, some closer, but some not so close, but always connected with the work. And this is because sometimes you are so alone when you make a film. It's great to have company and friends and people you trust. Yeah.
No, I for example, with Maren Ade, now she functions as a producer for you now on Western, and I was thinking a lot about her previous film, Tony Erdmann, that was a huge success here as well in Norway. The totally different genre and a kind of different experience, but that journey of the German to Romania, comparing to this journey here to Bulgaria, it's not much to compare about those movies actually, apart from the fact that they are taking us through a world with the characters that feels very sort of organic, but never dramatic in that, you know, that pushy way. And talking about Western, the way we kind of experience everything, not super subjectively with the main character, but at the same time we're so intimately close to him. It's not a question, it's more like a comment on the quality of the film that I really appreciate. And even in Sehnsucht, to talk a little bit about that film too, it has a very strong romantic current, sort of tragic, but also very strong. But yet, at the same time, the aesthetic of the actors is very similar to Western. They hardly say a word. And in the cuts, there's this feeling of a lot of story and a lot of emotion, but it's hardly there in the words, or, you know. Did you immediately know that this was the way you wanted to make films? Is that like just an intuition, or did you have some specific idea from the beginning that I'm going to do it like that?
Yes and no. I mean, I never can understand when people tell me they have the whole film in their head. For me, it's a miracle or a secret. I don't know how for me, it's not like this. It's always
No.
a process
Right.
to see how does it function, what is the mechanism of the story. It's always again and again. It's like questioning your first idea and always in contact with things that are happening or your surrounding. And but yeah, some things I know very precise in the beginning, even if it's more like a question. But I'm very interested in this kind of contrast of romanticism and realism and fiction and something which looks like documentary, and to have these kind of contrasts. So this is always interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think you're especially with the ending of Sehnsucht is such a great way to sort of close the story by opening it up again.
Yeah.
And I also like the sort of puzzling, enigmatic feeling at the end of Western, where you don't really. I had no idea when it was going to finish. Is this the final? Is this the final? And when it finally ends, it still very sort of keeps breathing within. Do you feel that sort of the balance between packaging sort of a story and making it neat, or leaving something to be desired? You fall into the second category. I feel that you want it to be a little bit open for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very, very interesting and. To let these open space for the audience, and I think to tell a story or to tell something, it has always to do something also with losing control. So to give it away, and for I don't know, I feel sometimes a little bit ashamed when I would tell in a story something like it is like this and like this, and so I don't know. I feel very close to the little bit of ambivalent, open moment in films.
Right,
yeah.
but that also leaves it for interpretation in a way.
Yeah.
So a story like this in Western, it premiered in Cannes at at the French huge fantastic festival, and then you have the French, and now it's a very sort of it has a German perspective, but it's also a Bulgarian story or landscape. So how has this film been interpreted in different places? Like, did the reception in Cannes, was it like you thought, or was there some surprises in how people read the film? Because I read some people wrote it's about the EU, it's about there's all these interpretations. How is that fun for you, or?
No, it's interesting. I think it was interesting in America. It was in America the genre was a big topic.
Yeah.
And maybe these more from a more far away perspective to Europe. What is happening in Europe?
Right.
And I think if I should connect it to places, I think more far east, or in Greece, for example, I think the EU topic was more a topic than, for example, in England. Or, so this was that there's more pressure in the daily life, which let the people look maybe different to the film. Yeah.
Right. And I know a friend of me, a Norwegian critic, asked, you should ask why it took 10 years to make another film, because people have been looking forward to see a new film from you. Are you so patient that you can just wait until it's the right time, or was it finally like were you impatient to make this film, or did you spend all those years to kind of develop Western? It's a mix. So I think for me, first of all, really life between films is also very interesting. So I'm not so, I don't know, sometimes I really like to, I don't know, just to not to do nothing, but not make films.
Yeah, not make films.
Yeah.
And but I got a daughter, and I was teaching, and I did some advice to other projects. But I really thought a long time about this film.
Yeah.
And how is it working? And I did a lot of research, and I really love researching and casting.
Right.
I could do this for ages. So at some point then I have to decide, okay, now let's do the film. And yeah, then we had to postpone it for 1 year because we had a financial gap or lack. So,
right.
And so in the end, suddenly you have these 10 or 11 years. But I hope the next one will be a little bit faster.
Yeah. Do you know what you want to sort of explore next time? Do you want to?
It's so small. It's stupid
too
to
early.
talk about.
Too early.
Sorry, it's a stupid answer, but it's like this.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So Western is not only screening in Tromsø at the festival; it's actually premiering in Norwegian cinemas.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So I felt like it's important to let people know that the film also opens in April, May, sometime in the spring in Norway, and hopefully we get to see our next film pretty soon. We're looking forward to it. So thank you for coming here and talking about your film. And
thank you to the
have a good
festival here.
have a good time in Tromsø for the rest of your stay.
Thank you
And
so
thank you
much.
to everyone here who came to listen.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.